Hi, welcome to Lesson 2-3, Estimating Sums and Differences. Our learning goal for tonight will be to round decimals to any place using place value understanding. Make sure you write the lesson title and all of the learning goals in your math journal. Please pause as you need to have time to do this. Our other learning goals will be to estimate sums and differences of whole numbers and decimals. We will also be estimating by rounding numbers to a specific place value, and we'll be substituting compatible numbers to round, and this will be a new strategy that we'll learn tonight. Our vocabulary word for tonight is going to be compatible numbers. And these are numbers that we can substitute for the original numbers in an addition or subtraction problem that are close to the original numbers. These numbers we will choose will help to make it easier for us to use mental math to estimate. So why do we estimate? The purpose of estimating sums or differences is to help us easily compute numbers in our heads. And there are lots of times in my life where I have to use estimation. Sometimes if I'm at the grocery store, I'm estimating how much it's going to cost when I go to the checkout. Or if my husband and I are doing a project around the house, sometimes we estimate how many different supplies we're going to need, or number of tile we're going to need to retile our bathroom floor. So we use estimation every day. And there's more than one way to estimate a sum or a difference. And this is what can make estimation tricky sometimes. I think sometimes in math, we kind of get stuck thinking there's only one right way to find an answer to a math problem. But hopefully you're learning this year that there are many strategies or ways that we can use to help get a correct answer. And estimation, there are a lot of techniques that will give us ways to estimate sums or differences just by replacing numbers with other numbers that are close. And we're going to work with two of those tonight, the rounding strategy and the compatible number strategy. Since there are many different ways to estimate, you get the opportunity to make decisions about how best to approach a problem to get the best estimate. So that's kind of exciting. Get to make some decisions about math. So let's look at an example together first. Suppose an amusement park has two roller coasters. One is 610 feet long and the other is 485 feet long. About how many feet long are these rides in all? About how many feet longer is one than the other? Estimate to answer each question. So this is a very interesting question. It's asking us to do two pieces of estimation, and it also has the word about in kind of bold-faced lettering. About is a really important clue word when it's an estimation problem. That's how you're going to tell that it's asking you to estimate instead of work out the original problem to get the answer. So let's look at 610 feet and 485 feet using rounding. So one is 610 feet long, the other is 485 feet long. About how many feet long are these rides in all? Well, let's think back to what we've learned in the previous two lessons. We've learned a rounding strategy where we decide upon a place value, or we're given a place value, and we use the strategy of looking at the place value behind it or to the right. And we have a little saying or poem that goes with that. If that place value is 5 or above, we give the original place value a shove and make that one number higher. Or if it's 4 or below, we leave that original place value alone and then make everything zeros after it. So if we look at 610 feet using the rounding strategy, we have a 6 in the hundreds place. We go back to look at the 1 in the tens place. 1 is 4 or below, so we'd let the 6 go, and the 6 would stay the same. The 1 and the 0 would become zeros, so 600 would be a good rounding strategy estimation for 610. When we look at 485 feet, we would look and use that same strategy. We'd look at the 8 in the tens place. The 8 is 5 or above, so we're going to give the 4 a shove, and then the 4 is going to become a 5, and everything after it will become zeros. So good estimation using rounding would give us the number 600 plus the number 500, and if we estimated, we would know that 1,100 feet would be a close estimate for how long both roller coasters are together. So that's using rounding strategy, which is review from the last couple of lessons. Now let's look at the second part of this question. About how many feet longer is one roller coaster than the other? Well, we've just rounded 610 feet to 600 feet and 485 feet to 500 feet. So we could look at those numbers and subtract to get an estimate answer of 100 feet, which would be the difference in how much longer one is from the other. Now let's take a look at our new strategy for tonight. Another way to estimate is by substituting the numbers that you were given in a problem with compatible numbers. And compatible numbers are just numbers that we are going to substitute into the problem that will make it easy for us to do mental math or mental computation in our head. So let's look at 23 and 8 tenths. Well, I know 23 and 8 tenths is pretty close to 25. And if I look at 13 and 9 tenths, I know that that number is pretty close to 15. So if I chose the compatible numbers of 25 minus 15, I can easily compute that in my head to know that it's 10. So 23 and 8 tenths minus 13 and 9 tenths would be about 10. And that's how we'd estimate using compatible numbers. So now let's do our practice problems. We're going to estimate sums and differences. Sums are the answer to addition problems and differences are the answers to subtraction problems. So let's use the rounding strategy first. If I look at the number 49 and let's use our strategy and our saying that we've looked at before. I'm going to be rounding the tens place. So I look right behind to the ones place, and sometimes we go ahead and circle that number. 9 is 5 or above, so I'm going to give the 4 a shove. It is going to become a 5, and everything behind it becomes zeros. So if I round 49, I would round that to 50. Now let's look at 22. Same strategy that we've been working with. I look behind to the ones column. That is 4 or below, so I'm going to let the 2 go. And the 2 will stay the same. Everything behind it becomes zeros. And then I can very easily do the problem of 50 plus 20 in my head to get 70. Now, if I want to check to make sure I have an accurate estimate, I can then do the original problem just to make sure that I'm close. Okay, so 9 plus 2 is 11. Put my 1 up there. 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. So the actual answer was 71. So my estimate of 70 was a very accurate estimate. All right, let's try our new strategy of compatible numbers. So if I look at the number 86, I'm just going to find a number that I can easily compute in my head that's very close to 86. Well, I know 86 is close to 90, and I can work with that number easily in my head. And I know that 18 is very close to 20. And I can subtract 20 from 90 in my head very easily to get 70. And that's really all there is to it for the compatible numbers strategy. Just another strategy that we can use to help us estimate. Let's try that strategy again, but this time with decimals. So if I look at 33 and 8 tenths, I know that 33 and 8 tenths is very close to 35. And 4 and 7 tenths is very close to 5. So I'm going to substitute the 5 in for 4 and 7 tenths. 5 is my compatible number because I can very easily subtract that from 35. 35 minus 5 gives me 30. Okay, so let's use the rounding strategy again. Make sure you're trying these on your own and then pressing play once you've tried it to see if we get the same answer. All right, 87 and 2 tenths. I'm going to use the strategy we've been working with. I'm going to underline the ones place. I'm going to look behind to the tenths place. And I'm going to remember my rhyme. 5 or above, give it a shove. 4 or below, let it go. I know that 2 is 4 or below, so I'm going to let the 7 go, and it is going to stay a 7. Everything behind it becomes zeros. Now I'm writing this in even though you probably know 87 is equivalent to 87 and 0 tenths. But I want to leave it this way just in case you ever have a bigger number that you're working with, you'll get used to putting the zeros in. But we know that they're equivalent, 87 and 87 and 0 tenths. All right, so let's look at 2 and 9 tenths. Okay. I'm going to underline my 2. I'm going to go to the tenths column right behind. 9 is 5 or above, so I have to give the 2 a shove, and it is going to become a 3, and everything behind it is zeros. And I can very easily figure out that 87 plus 3 is 90. So that was our another practice using the rounding strategy. So now we have 2 strategies in our toolbox for estimating, rounding strategy and compatible number strategy. We are ready for the challenge problem. Jill's family is putting new carpet in 3 rooms. The floor of one room is 120 feet squared. The floor of the second room is 252 feet squared. And the floor of the third room is 178 feet squared. Jill estimated the total number of square feet of the carpet needed for the 3 rooms as 500 feet square. Did she overestimate or underestimate? Explain and justify your answer by showing your work. So I challenge you to estimate this maybe one time using the rounding strategy and then maybe another time using the compatible number strategy. Tell us if she overestimated or underestimated, and then show your work. And that's always what justify your answer means. It means show your work or to tell us or to explain how you got your answer. So in closing, always go back and review your learning goals. Have you mastered all of them? Do you need to go back and review or practice again? In your journal, write down if you were at a 1, a 2, or a 3 in your learning. In your journal, please write down 1 or more questions that you may have about today's lesson. Like I said, sometimes estimating can be a little tricky because sometimes we're used to thinking about math and that there's only maybe one way to find a correct answer. And in estimating, there are multiple strategies that we can use to find good estimate answers to our problems. So if you do have a question, especially about the compatible number strategy, please write that down. Way to go, you've completed lesson 2-3, estimating sums or differences. Thanks for working so hard, and we'll see you tomorrow.